This is the bedroom in West London where I grew up in the 1960s and 70s. Like many boys of my age, I was obsessed with rock music and building up a record collection. And this is a record that obsessed me more than most. I saw it in one of the first ever Virgin record stores in Notting Hill Gate. It looked creepy, menacing. The name of the artist, Frank Zappa, was exotic, and I loved the title, Hot Rats. I had no idea what it might sound like, so of course I bought it. And when I took it home, I listened to something I'd never heard before. Hot Rats was released in 1969, but its opening track, Peaches en Regalia, showed a splendid disregard for the rules of rock music. Its melody was lovely, the arrangement sounded totally fresh, and Zappa's use of time signatures throughout the album showed a sophistication more often associated with jazz and classical music.
Mr. America, walk on by.
I hungrily explored Zappa's back catalogue and discovered an artist who was part of the 1960s counterculture, but intriguingly apart from it too. Born in 1940 of second-generation Sicilian Greek parents, Zappa's early work with the Mothers of Invention was a scabrous assault on middle American values. He wrote songs about sex in a playful and willfully obscene way, challenging would-be censors with material that didn't have a hope of gaining any airplay. But it was Zappa's musical eclecticism that was truly beguiling. He somehow managed to combine the 1950s doo-wop with which he grew up with complex jazz themes and even allusions to avant-garde classical composers such as Edgar Varese. It was unique, and although Zappa attracted a devoted cult following, it was his very resistance to be easily categorized that stood in the way of widespread recognition.
For those of us who always considered Zappa to be an artist ahead of his time, this summer is a vindication. No fewer than 3 of our most important cultural institutions are featuring his work. At the South Bank Centre's Royal Festival Hall, Zappa's previously banned work 200 Motels is receiving its UK premiere.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Oh yeah!
At the Edinburgh International Festival, the Cologne-based contemporary music group Ensemble Musique Fabrique is performing a selection of his works. While here at the Royal Albert Hall, as part of its BBC prom season, the Aurora Orchestra is performing Zappa's mock rock opera, The Adventures of Gregory Peccary.
The Adventures of Gregory Peccary.
Oh, here comes Gregory, little Gregory Peccary.
It's a remarkable piece for his band. He wrote it for his group, and for a narrator and for a singer. It exists also in this version for classical ensemble, and it's a sort of surreal story, and it involves quite a lot of the Zappa themes about railing against authority, but also this little pig has a relationship also to Pope Gregory, hence the name Gregory Peccary. The pig invents a calendar, and that also relates to the Gregorian calendar as well. But it's almost cartoonish in the music, the way it cuts. It doesn't have lots of repetition, but it's a really high energy, as you would expect from Zappa piece, and great fun.
Zappa may have finally earned the respect of the classical music world today, but it was a very different story back in 1971. First, he was banned from performing 200 Motels at the Royal Albert Hall because of the work's obscene content. Then later that same year, here at North London's Rainbow Theatre, he was pushed off stage by a member of the audience and broke his neck. By the time he returned to live performance, his music was taking an increasingly complex turn, demanding virtuoso playing from his musicians, both rock and classical.
I came across Frank Zappa's music 3 years ago. I was asked to do a concert which had Adventures of Gregory Peccary and another piece, revised music for low-budget orchestra in it. I knew who Frank was. I didn't really know much about his music, and I sort of opened it up and listened to it and thought, this is astonishing, this is amazing stuff. But I guess for me, I probably represent, other members of the classical community who weren't really aware of his music. When you open it up and you look at it on the page, that to me looks very much like quite a standard contemporary classical score. It could be anything written by, giants of contemporary music in the last sort of 30, 40 years. But at the same time, it's got his trademark individuality. It's often funny, it's sometimes frivolous, sort of living on the edge, dangerous music.
The day I met Frank Zappa was one of the most extraordinary days of my life. I think early 80s. Went to his house, rang on a doorbell, and suddenly the door swung open, and there, silhouetted, because it was beginning to get quite dark, it was sort of late afternoon, early evening, there silhouetted was the figure of Zappa lit from a particular place in the garden. Whether he knew he was going to have that particular impact, and just said, "Come in," And I thought, this is a bit like going to see the Addams Family at this particular point, and it seemed to me that there was this rather sort of lonely, reclusive figure, although I'm sure he wasn't a recluse in that sense, but there working away on his synclavier projects, said to me, once we'd done the interview, "Would you like to hear my wind quintet?" Which is such an odd thing with this hugely important rock figure, but there was that sense of wanting to be approved of in the classical music world.
It's 20 years since Zappa's death at the age of 52, and I think things have turned out pretty well for him. Not only has he become a pillar of the rock pantheon, but he's being discovered by a new generation of classical musicians who love his intricate rhythms and subversive wit. As for the Rainbow Theatre, it's been taken over by the Universal Church of the Kingdom of God. Frank would surely have loved that. Peter Aspden, Financial Times, London.